Obviously, Rackspace was a major player at the time in the hosting world and very successful. Obviously, all these big websites that you were mentioning that came up through there. But at some point, things crossed over and people started moving to the cloud, to AWS, to wherever, right, Azure, et cetera. And those guys are much bigger businesses than Rackspace is now. So I'm curious, was it just an innovator's dilemma type of problem happening at Rackspace at the time, where they didn't want to start selling servers by the second or by the hour because it would cannibalize the existing business, and then that opened a door for Amazon to really come in? Or like, what were you seeing there at the time?
We were certainly paying attention to Amazon. It was not like we didn't understand the threat or the opportunity. You know, you can look at it in two ways. I mean, at that time, they were coming at it from, I think they launched the queuing service, they launched S3, they launched EC2, they launched a few things sort of in order. And it was like, in the early days when we first saw that, it was like, this is pretty interesting stuff. This is like, worth exploring, worth thinking about. And yet at the same time, we were not seeing it as an immediate threat because of the big enterprise customers were still demanding large scale hardware, redundancy, things that were sort of more bulletproof in terms of sort of, I call it like the gold plated hardware. They wanted a SAN with redundancy. They wanted a NAS with redundancy. They wanted large scale enterprisey type equipment. They wanted to see your data center. They wanted to
Oh, yeah, that's right. Go inside and walk around.
the facility and make sure it's compliant with all these standards and whatever. I mean, I think what we could have done is again try to build at that scale, go faster, but again, you can't do it if it's not in your DNA. I mean, we didn't really have an army of software engineers at Rackspace at the time. We were sort of mostly data center engineers, network engineers, system administrators. We were kind of a different animal. And so what we should have done earlier is just embrace the idea that people were going to be multi-cloud and put our arms around sort of supporting or helping make that more practical sooner, right? And a lot of people struggled. I mean, even the best software engineers are not always good in terms of keeping things running or making things work at sort of a large scale systems, distributed systems kind of scale. And we had some expertise there. I mean, building these big, complicated deployments. The other thing we used to do quite well every Christmas, this time of year, we would build out massive amounts of server infrastructure for whatever Xbox game was about to launch that Christmas, right? Every game developer needed tons of infrastructure. And then in the pre cloud era, this was a challenge, right? How did you get all that infrastructure for Christmas Day? And then how do you taper it off after Christmas? And we had lots of experience and expertise at building out those systems in a physical world. And it wasn't that much of a jump into the virtual. In fact, it made our lives a lot easier. And I think we should have just leveraged that and sort of went out and told that story of embracing all the other clouds instead of sort of fighting with them, but really going and making them easier to adopt sooner. Rackspace did eventually did that, but it was not, I don't think, the right timing necessarily, a little late.